Welcome this evening to yet another Monday night program here on Globespan 24x7. We want to thank all our viewers for joining in and for being part of our program tonight. We want to thank also Mr. Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course Devin Bisu, our technical specialist. Tonight, as we continue to present our facts to you, the Guyanese people and the world at large, we want to continue to recognize that the Hindu community is celebrating Navratri, which ends this week. We want to wish them all the best. And of course, to our Muslim community, as they celebrate Ramadan, the month of fasting, we want to also wish them Ramadan Mubarak. This evening, we are very honored and privileged to have with us no stranger to us here at Globespan, nor in Guyana. He has been around for a very long time. He is the president of GAWU, Guyana Agricultural Workers Union. Prior to that, he was the general secretary. And with the passing of the late Komal Chand, a very prolific and someone who we all looked up to, Mr. Narine became the president. He's also a member of parliament in the Parliament of Guyana in the current session, representing part of the PDP government. Mr. Narine, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you very much, and a pleasant good night to our viewers.
All right, and of course, my co-host, Dr. Rose, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome also, Mr. Narine.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rose.
All right, Mr. Narine, before we start, again, we want to extend to you and to the GAWU family our deepest condolences on the passing of Mr. Komal Chand. I am proud to say he was my village man. I grew up in front of him. He was very, very nice to the community. He helped as much as he can. And I'm sure the GAWU community missed him a hell of a lot. So our condolences to you and GAWU.
Well, certainly we have missed him. It's 1 year now. And we have been able to move on, but he has left us a great legacy. And he has left us with the requisite knowledge and tools to carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Narine. Again, we also want to congratulate you on being elected president of GAWU, and we look forward to your leadership to be even better than that of Mr. Chand. I know he is hard to fill his shoe, but I'm sure being general secretary and now being honored to be the president, I think you will do very well. So we want to thank you also and congratulate you on your appointment as president of GAWU.
Well, thank you very much. I have worked with the union for a little over 35 years. And during that period, I had always worked along with him. And we have shared many struggles and many battles. We were in it together in defense of workers.
Okay. And Mr. Narine, before we get into the program itself, can you give us a history of GAWU? Walk us through when GAWU started, what was the struggle, and where GAWU is today, if you don't mind.
Actually, GAWU started in 1946 as the Guyana Industrial Workers Union, and the union had been formed by Dr. Jagan and others. And later on, you had the 1948 shooting at Enmore, and you had incidents that follow after that. And the union went into a null, and eventually they were regrouped and they became the Guyana Sugar Workers Union. And then in 1961, the union re-registered as the Guyana Agricultural Workers Union. And somewhere around 1976, the union became Guyana Agricultural and General Workers Union. In 1976, we had been recognized as the representative union for the sugar workers, both field and factory. After that, the union expanded, and currently we are in sugar, we are in rice, And we are representing workers at the national parks, at Guyana Forestry Commission, at MMA, this is in Rice, and also at Noble House, and the two bridges, the Demerara and Berbice Bridge. So along with that, we also have the Demerara distillers as part of our bargaining unit. So we have expanded quite a lot from where we started in sugar. And of recent, we have lost some membership in sugar due to the closure of the estates that were closed under the previous administration. We also had some losses where a major fish plant had been closed, that is the BEV Enterprises. So, but still we are managing and we are looking towards further expansion as well.
So you have started with sugar and now you're right across the spectrum.
Yes, we are.
Okay. You are not part of the Trade Union Congress, right? I think you're part of FITUG. Is there
We are
any
part of FITUG because there are two umbrella bodies. You have the Guyana Trade Union Congress and you have the Federation of Independent Trade Unions of Guyana, which is FITUG. We are part of FITUG.
Is there any arrangement to be part of the trade union movement, one movement? Is that something that...
It's something that we have, and we always need to keep this into focus. Because if you have one federation or one umbrella organization, it is to the benefit of the workers. But there are many differences, and we still have hope that we could be able to have one day a united trade union movement in Guyana.
Okay, Dr. Rose.
Mr. Narine, good evening again. Now, you have emerged to be the president of GAWU, Guyana Agricultural Workers Union. And as I said, you've been a member of the union for several years now. But a lot of people don't know your background, maybe your workers. Can you give us a background? Tell us something about yourself.
Well, actually, the workers know my background. I started out at Lenora Estate as a cane planter. I work around the estate doing all types of jobs, cut cane, weeding, factory. And then I became a field officer for GAWU in 1984. And in 1986, when the factory at Lenora was closed, I moved to the head office of the union, and I work in all the different sections in the union. I worked one time as the NIS, at the NIS desk. I work at grievances, at one time in accounts, and then I was in communications, assistant communications officer, and then I became communications officer, then General Secretary in 1997, and recently President. Apart from that, I serve on a number of state boards, and at the international level, I'm an executive member of the International Union of Food Workers, to which we are affiliated. I'm also a board member on the Agriculture Board for the International Union of Food Workers, and I'm representing them, that is the IUF, International Union of Food Workers, as a member of the United Nations Food Security Committee.
Okay, but you didn't tell us where you were born, where you grew up, and so forth.
Well, actually, my birth certificate said I was born in Enterprise on the East Coast. And I remember when I was just maybe around 6, I moved and I lived with my grandparents in Kitty. And I managed to go to school in Kitty, and then later on I moved to Lenora, and there I started working on the estate. I live a little bit at Lenora, on the Lenora location, but specifically at CI, Cornelia Ida. And then at Iflat one time, and then at one time at Anna Katrina. I live a little bit. I live a little bit at Podrine as well. After I got married, me and my wife, we moved and we lived at Podrine a little bit. And now we are at Eccles permanently.
Okay. Now, Mr. Narine, trade unions in Guyana have played a major role in Guyana's political life, going back to the emergence of Hubert Nathaniel Critchlow in 1917 when he formed the first trade union in Guyana. It was called the British Guyana Labour Union, I think. Since then, all trade unions in Guyana has been aligned to a political party, either the PEP or the PNC. This being the case, how can trade unions truly represent their workers?
Well, one has to decide as a trade unionist what you're going to stand for, whether you're going to support blindly a political party just for the sake of supporting them, or whether as a trade unionist, you will use your presence in the political arena to further represent the interests of workers. So in the case of Critchlow had said that one cannot, as a trade unionist alone, fully represent the working people, that you need to have access to the political hierarchy so that you could be able to advance the cause of the workers. And if we look in the Caribbean, not only in Guyana, many of the Caribbean leaders emerge out of the trade union movement. So for me, it's not whether you're aligned to which side, is what position you take in defense of the working people. Whether you're prepared to, just be quiet and sell your soul for the sake of being aligned, or whether you're prepared to speak out in defense of the people you represent.
Okay.
Well, for me, I am prepared to speak out for the people I represent. And I've been doing so.
Okay. So the TUC, okay, I'll come to that question later. Now, both the PEP and the PNC have tried to silence trade unions whenever they were in office. What was Guyana's relationship with APNU over the last 5 years when it was in office? And what is it now with the PEP?
Well, I don't agree with you that the PPP had tried to deliberately silence trade unions, because Dr. Jagan himself had formed the union, and Dr. Jagan himself had said to the trade union movement in 1997 that we must write the law and bring it, and he will pass them. And it was during that period, just before he passed, that all the labor laws that we have in the country at the moment, well, not all, but the major ones in protecting workers' rights had been passed during his tenure. The APNU in the last 5 years, they had no respect for the working people. And this was publicly demonstrated when they just went and, without having any study or without looking at ways to mitigate the hardships, they just went and closed estates and put 7,500 people on the road without any alternative. Then they did not give sugar workers any increase during the period they were in office. From 2015, and then in 2020, it's supposed to be in 2019, just before the elections, but they didn't manage to pull it off. And in 2020, a 5% increase had been awarded. But if you look over those 5 years, you would have seen absolutely no respect for the working people. You had instances where when the teachers strike and stood up in defense of their conditions, they were told that they were selfish, they were uncaring, and all kind of different names you had, labeling the teachers under APNU by the minister responsible for labor. And then you had a number of workplaces that had been closed under APNU AFC. You know, you had the Bauxite Company, you had places in Timber, Barama, you had many other places. And you had, I'm told that in that 5-year period, at least 30,000 people would have lost their jobs under APNU, you know, without any alternative. And one has to take that into consideration. Compare that to the PPP. Previously, before this government now, there had always been increases in wages and salaries and conditions of work. In fact, the Teachers Union General Secretary, who is now in Parliament on the APNU side, she said it publicly that they had been treated better under the PPP than under APNU. And that is a public statement. But then one could look to the PPP that workers' rights had been respected. At least they might not have gotten everything they wanted, but you know, they had access and people were listening to them. Now, under this new government of the PPP, we are already seeing a number of changes. You know, the cost of living has been reduced because of the removal of a lot of license and taxes that had been imposed. You have a new wind of life in the sugar industry with the injection of capital by the government to have the closed estates reopen. We are seeing investment opportunity in the economy, and that by itself is creating jobs as well. And unfortunately, all of this and our potential is affected by the COVID pandemic. But, you know, to compare the PPP with APNU AFC is comparing cheese and chalk. The APNU AFC had absolutely no respect for the working people. In fact, they had no respect for even the rule of law. And how could they, if you don't have respect for the rule of law, how can you have respect for the ordinary man and woman? You just can't talk. You couldn't.
Okay. Since you're saying that the PPP has always been more favorable to trade unions in Guyana, and APNU was not, why do you think APNU was not favorable? Briefly.
Well, they had no program. They had no program to create employment. All that they did was to collect taxes and to add more and more taxes on people. And the ordinary man had been catching hell under the APNU AFC.
Okay, Charles, over to you.
All right. Mr. Narine, I'm glad you mentioned that a lot of politicians came out from the trade union movement. My question to you, are there any trade unionists who went into business?
Yes. Yes.
And who some of these people might be?
Well, you had at different levels trade unionists who went into business, and you still have some now too in business, even from the TUC level. There are many people who are trade unionists. They have built apartment buildings, they have opened stores, they have opened their own business. You don't have very many of them around, but if you want one prominent name, you could look at Dr. N.K. Gopal, who grew up as a trade unionist. He was Minister of Labor, and he has served in different capacity, including one time the chairman of Guysuco, and many other things. So, you know, there are a number of people who had been trade unionists and have gone into business, but many of them are not around because, you know, one problem in the trade union movement is that people stay there for a long time. People tend to stay there for a long time.
And that's what I'm coming to. That I'm coming to, because running a business involves risk, and it's whether it's your money or shareholders' money you're managing. It's different from representing workers who work for you, and you want to demand everything for the workers, which is what the trade unionists really look out to.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
That's
not true. In order to be a respected trade unionist and trade union, one has to be responsible. And at the level of GAWU, we had always exercised that level of responsibility. And that is why, no doubt, I could be able to serve on a number of government state boards. I'm the vice chairman of the New Building Society as well. And this is not to praise myself, but I'm just drawing the distinction that it is not only demanding for the workers, it is to ensure that what they deserve, they get. And that has to be against a background of what is reasonable and what is achievable. It's not just going and say that, look, we want. That is absolutely not the case. And any trade union that is involved in such a behavior, they are reckless. And that's not the case with GAWU at all.
Okay, in your walk with GAWU, and of course, representing workers, you want to show the workers that you can, get benefits for them. But in doing that, every benefit that you would derive for the worker is a cost to the business. Have you, in your deliberations with the business managers, the owners, the executives, discussed with them some of the possible ways to generate revenue to pay for that additional cost?
Certainly. And if we are to look at Guysuco, we have said to them, and when I had been General Secretary, I presented a paper to the APNO AFC government to say that sugar as a business cannot be sugar alone, that one has to look at the way you diversify from byproducts. And the use of your molasses, the use of your bagasse, which is waste, and to go into cogeneration, to use your molasses to do different things, including the manufacturing of medical alcohol. And these are things that you have ready markets for. Almost all the medical alcohol that is used in this country, almost all is imported. And here you have the market that you could just take it up. I said to them that you need to look at the way you sell sugar, your marketing, because you're selling sugar in 110-pound bag or 120-pound big sacks, but then people buying it, repackage and sell it for 2 or 3 times the price. You have a packaging facility, but you are not utilizing it in Guysuco. So these little things that you will do adds value. And that is important because everything that you put your effort and cost into, one has to look at the way you could derive new revenues. Fortunately, Guysuco is listening now, and they have started to sell sugar in smaller packages, and they're getting about double the price. So this is one way that you could be able to improve. Another thing is to also manage your workforce and don't be top heavy, because you could demotivate people. For instance, at the moment, the communications officer in Guysuco has been elevated to the level of pay and benefit as an estate manager. Those two levels are far apart, taking into account the responsibility of an estate manager vis-a-vis a communications officer. But that has been done in Guysuco. And these are not things that are positive for the management stream, because in any organization, in any business, not only the workers are important, but equally so are the people who are managing the business and people at a higher level. Because if you demotivate them, like how you take away their weekly production incentive, I don't know if you know this, but recently the weekly production incentive has been taken away from the managers, which is not right, which is absolutely not right. You're not encouraging to motivate your managers. And if you don't address their conditions as well, you could have a business without it being managed properly because of the lack of personnel.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned, you brought up some really nice issues there with Guysuco. And as you said, I believe Mr. Singh, who is now the CEO, I think he's taking some of your advice. And I think he's gone full flow into packaged sugar because he said it's value added. And they've recognized the business opportunities that Guysuco lost when they were selling, as you said, back sugar, and then those sugar were repackaged into smaller components and selling to the customer. But I think they're addressing that, so that's a good thing. But what I want to, you mentioned the communication department, but Mr. Narine, public relations is an integral part of the company, and public relations set the tone basically to communicate with the public and with the customers and everything else.
I have no doubt about that.
There's some skill set that someone will need to do that. And I'm saying, let us not just use the position and say, oh, the person is getting equal pay to whatever the capacity you mentioned is, but it's what they're doing, because don't forget, with the marketing department and the communication, public relation, they're so integral to push the goals of the corporation. Would you agree?
I got no doubt that your communications department and your communications officer is an important department. But one has to look at the level of responsibility between a communications officer and an estate manager. An estate manager has to face all the vagaries and has to go into the cane field, ensure that things are right, and go into the factory, face the factory breakage, challenges in the factory, has to deal with industrial relations, and all the things that goes with it. I have no doubt that the communications person is an important person, but I have a doubt that they are equal to an estate manager. That's where my problem is.
You started this discussion, Mr. Narine, by saying comparing apples and chalk and something with apple and PVP. You're saying doing the same thing. It's like a doctor and an attorney. Does the doctor has to do the operation, which is so important. The attorney can sit back and just do his research, go to the court, his or her research, and present a case and win, and get 3 times the salary of the doctor. So I'm not comparing that to say that different positions have different responsibility. We know that. So I don't think you should underplay the importance of a communication department with a company like Guysuco, knowing some of the things that are going on within Guysuco. So I'm not defending or against it, but I'm saying just recognize that each department.
What is happening in Guysuco to fight the union and to put out statement against the union? Guysuco is a fairly straightforward company that you don't need this big sophistication for a communications department. You need the sophistication at the estate level where the sugar is being produced. I hope you don't misunderstand me. I have no difficulty for people to get reasonable conditions and pay. But one has to compare the equality in it, the equality. And, this is where we got to be careful, because if we are not, and if we continue to employ people at higher pay than those in the system, and the established pay grades, we're going to run into trouble. That's my warning. It's not right.
I don't think that's happening at Guysuco, but Dr. Rose?
It has been happening. It has been happening. Recently, about 30 people has been employed at higher levels than those in the system, about 30. And I'm saying publicly that Guysuco needs to be careful about that.
And
Mr. Singh, as the CEO,
where are they employed?
Mr. Singh, as the CEO, needs to take account of that and to address it. It cannot be allowed to be perpetuated. You are going to create conditions that is not going to be favorable to those in the system. And you need them because
if you're looking at a competitive workforce, you know, with all industries coming into Guyana now, if you don't offer a competitive pay to your staff, you will not necessarily get them. So where are these 30 people you're talking about? Where are they employed within Guysuco?
All right, they're in the head office. But I agree with you fully that competition has to be the answer. And if you're going to give others to bring them in, then those who are in the system at that level also have that value. So I am not against bringing people and hiring them at a certain level because you need to keep them. But you need to also address those who are there. So if you're going to bring people and recognize that, look, the market rate for a position is X plus 1, then those in that same position who are there in the system ought to enjoy X plus 1 as well, because you are recognizing what the value is. That's not saying that, look, you shouldn't give them, but treat your people, especially at the management level, fairly. If not, you are going to end up in more problems than you're starting off with.
I just want our listeners to understand what you're saying here. Now, if the board of directors approve a certain position for someone else to get that position, and you think it is equivalent to an estate manager, you as the president of GAWU...
I'm not certain the board approve it. That's where the problem is. The board did not approve it, but it was done.
So who could have done it without the board?
Well, someone in authority had to do it for it to happen.
Okay, let me move on. Now, GAWU being aligned with the PEP, the TUC, GLU, and all those being aligned with the PNC, don't you think that's a conflict of interest when it comes to the workers' rights?
Well, actually, you have it wrong, because the Guyana Labor Union, which had been Burnham Union, is a member of the FITL grouping. So they're not aligned to the PNC. Even if they are not with the TUC.
Okay, what the unions aligned with the PNC and those aligned with the PEP. Don't you think being aligned with political parties is a conflict of interest when you have to represent your workers and seek your workers' rights?
I don't believe so, because I said earlier, it depends on what position you take. Whether you are taking position in defense of the people who you represent, or you are blindly representing your party. We have the situation with the TUC and FITL. And FITL has more membership than the TUC. FITL has been recognized as the majority representative organization of workers in the country, both by the ILO and by the Court of Guyana, the High Court.
Okay, and, go ahead.
Yeah, and you know, Critchlow said, you have to be able to be a member of the forum so that you could be able to carry forward the interests of workers. And, you know, historically, we have seen a number of trade unionists, whether they had been PNC or PVP, they had been members of parliament and they had been representing their workers fully and dedicatedly for whatever they deserve. And Komal Chan had been a very example.
And you don't think that's a conflict of interest?
No, it's not.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. The TUC was the umbrella trade union in Guyana. Like all unions were affiliated with the TUC. But in 1984, as you know, Mr. Narine, 7 disaffected unions broke away from the TUC and formed the Federation of Independent Trade Unions in Guyana, FITUG, FITUG, what you call it. Now, my question to you is this. Are trade unions supposed to be independent? If you want to be independent, how can you be aligned with a political party?
Well, trade unions are independent. They ought to be independent. For GAWU, we are. We have our own executive, we have our general counsel, and we are guided by those decisions there. And in fact, we are among the only unions that has the guts to stand up in defense of people. And you know, today we have had a strike in the sugar industry as we speak today. And that had been at Albion and Blemont. Last week we had a strike at Iflot. And what was that strike for? That strike was to ensure that we have the negotiation process addressed and completed. You know, Guysuco said to us that they want to settle 2019, 2020, and 2021. We said that's our desire as well. I am aware that Guysuco board gave the CEO a mandate. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the mandate. And the CEO came and said that I don't have anything. We said, all right, we had our differences, but we know you're not saying what was told to you. And we said, let's have some time and settle. Guysuco management promised to get back to us by the end of March. At the end of March, we didn't hear from them. We wrote to him. He chose not to answer. He chose not to answer. Well, that's his right. But we are not going to take it like that. So the workers are upset. The workers are upset and they have gone on strike that you need to get to us and answer us. Then they have deducted savings from workers' wages, somewhere around $100 million. Owing to the GAWU credit union. This is savings for workers, which they deducted from their wages. But they deducted the money and has not paid it over to us in the credit union. So we are losing interest and opportunity for investment on the money that they are illegally withholding. No doubt they have spent it on other things, which is tantamount to fraud. And they are now bargaining with us as if, you know, it's their money and we begging them for a loan or an advance. This is workers' money and they need to pay it over forthwith. And, you know, we had a situation like this in 2017, where as General Secretary, I was forced to approach the High Court. And there is a judgment where we had been awarded 6% interest, and Guysuco had been ordered to pay forthwith. I hope I don't have to return to that recourse. But what I simply want to say is that one has to be prudent in their business style and approach. This is workers' money you deducted. It's like me and you going to the bank, make a deposit in our savings account, and then we go a month after and we are told, well, you can't get no money because we spent all the money on something else. So there are issues. There are issues that are unfair because the GAWU credit union is losing opportunity investment, and then because we have to pay from our reserves, we are losing income there too. So, you know, it's not always smooth running. The CEO is our comrade. We are supporting him, but I cannot and would not allow our friendship to hamper our organization. And I cannot be straight more than that.
Mr. Narine, Charles, you want to come in?
Yeah, I was going to ask you a question. You mentioned you went on strike at IFLOT and now Albion and Blairmont. Part of the agreement with a company, were you not supposed to give them notice that you're going on strike? Did you do that?
We had been talking to them. We had been talking to them.
Talking to them and giving notice of a strike action.
If you're in negotiations, and you're representing the workers, and I'm representing management, and I tell you that, look, I will get back to you before the end of March. At the end of March, I probably forget what I said. But you write me and you reminded me that, look, you owe me an answer and you choose not to reply. What do you expect the workers to do?
No, I'm not disagreeing with that. What I'm saying is that before the workers would have gone on strike, isn't it established protocol that the union will inform their organization?
Well, they went on a one-day protest as a beginning. When we go to the strike and the real strike, and we have to give notice, I hope we don't reach that point. But if we have to give the notice, we will give the notice. This is just a warning.
Do you know, Mr. Narine, with that strike at IFLOT, you would have known what happened is that canes were there ready to be milled. And after the strike was called off, you know what the TCTS was for those canes? 30 tons of cane produce 1 ton of sugar. How can you run a business like that?
That's absolutely not because the workers strike one day. It is because the quality of canes had not been good.
No. The quality of canes
you tell me. You tell me. I have been working in sugar a long time, my whole life.
I know.
And I could tell you. One day cannot take your TCTS double from 15 to 30. It's absolutely impossible. The quality of canes had not been good.
Well, you know what TCT.
IFLOT Estate has a history of not having enough canes to run the mill continuously. Sometimes they cut today, they grind till 2 days after. And never ever the TCTS will go double. I've been in sugar all my life. I could tell you.
I'm telling you.
Will go up 2 points. 2 points.
I'm telling you that for the crop so far, the TCTS was about 12 to 13. But this week after the strike, for that set of cane that was there to be milled, the TCTS was 30 tons, just for your information. That is not good for any organization.
Can you explain what TCTS means to the audience? Because they might not know.
Tons cane, it means the amount of tons cane you use to produce a ton of sugar.
Okay.
And I would advise you, Mr. Sugrim, that you speak to the agricultural experts. And I happen to be among their clique. And I could tell you, if canes are delayed by 24 hours, the maximum that the TCTS will go up would be 2 points. 2 points. And if it went up double, if it went up from 14 to 30, then it's not because the canes became stale for 24 hours. It's much more than that. It's either,
how many days was strike at IFLOT?
They had 1 day strike.
No, it's more than that.
And then you had
it was 1 day, Charles. It was 1 day.
Then you had rain. You had rain, and the rain prevented the canes from coming in to the factory for a few days. So it is absolutely not the strike that caused the TCTS to become double.
After
Mr. Narine,
I work in the estate. I know this thing.
Do you think, okay, I'll give you that. Do you think it's prudent at this time to call a strike and shut down the Guysuco in the midst when Guysuco is trying to reopen 3 of the 4 sugar estates closed by APNU in order to provide more jobs for workers and more money to your unions? Do you think it's prudent to do it at this time?
Well, I absolutely support the moves to have the estate reopen and to create new jobs, and we have said that publicly. But one cannot sit back and allow the management to walk on you and to be peddling false information. You know, I saw them saying in Guysuco that in order to give 5% increase, they need $1.5 billion. Well, that has been multiplied times and times over, because even when you had 15,000 people, 16,000 people, 5% was not costing you $1.5 billion. And to come and say that you need so much, it means that, you know, it's a figment of someone's imagination. They're out to create public mischief. But coming to your question directly, I don't think it is prudent to have any disruption at all, now or not in the near future. But one cannot sit down and allow the Guysuco management to get away with murder. You know, if the answer is no, the answer is no. But why are you hiding from us and not coming and answer? You have outstanding for the workers 5% for 2019. We said, let's find an answer. You have come to us and say you want an answer. We are supportive of finding an answer. But my God, time reach and you're going to hide from us and not answering? Nobody could fathom that. You can't tolerate that kind of behavior.
You said it also in this program not too long ago that because of the sales mix that Guysuco was engaged in, the bulk of their sales was in bulk sugar, and that was not, you know, enough to turn over. It wasn't covering the cost. So you know the cash flow problem with Guysuco. Had it not been for the injection of capital from central government, the entire Guysuco would have had to close. So what I'm saying is that unless you produce, where will Guysuco get the money? And as Dr. Rose rightly said, why at this time, when the CEO is working assiduously to ensure that they get value for their product so the workers can benefit? Because I spoke with the CEO and he said any savings that Guysuco get goes to the workers. He's prepared to do that, but they don't have it at this time. I just want to mention one thing before you answer. You know the incentive workers get, the sugar workers get for cutting cane. If they meet their target based on the agreement, you make 10 tons of cane per week, you get an extra 31% bonus on your pay. You do 15 tons, you get the same thing. You go above 15 to 60, you get 40%. You know that. You do 17 tons, you get 60% bonus on whatever you earn. So these are costs that the organization is prepared to carry, but they have to get the production. If you do not produce, what will you sell, Mr. Narine?
The incentive that you talk about, that incentive had been negotiated by myself and others long before this administration. And it is a production incentive. And you said it, if one cut and load 10 tons of cane, they get an additional sum. 15 tons, 18 tons, yes, there is that incentive, but that incentive had been there a long time before this new CEO ever dreamed of coming in the industry. And it is production based. If you don't produce the amount of canes, you don't get the incentive. So it is built into the cost of production to ensure that there is certain levels of productivity. So yes, that is there. It had been there a long time. It is part of the established cost. And in terms of the production, and there is an incentive if you would have achieved your target. It is the weekly production incentive.
Right. In addition to the production,
we are working very hard. We are encouraging people to work towards the target. And it is that very incentive that I referred to earlier that has been taken away from the senior staff. The estate staff who are part of the production team, you know, to ensure that the targets are achieved. It would motivate them to put a little bit effort more. And because if they are benefiting, they will do everything to ensure that the targets are achieved. So it is that very target that I'm talking about. But one has to understand that the payments are not for not achieving anything. It is out of the production that you would have achieved that you benefit from the incentive. So yes, I agree that we need to produce every ounce of sugar. I agree with that fully. And you know, every effort must be made to ensure that there is nothing disrupting us from doing that. And you know, I know the CEO is your friend, and you may tend to defend him, but he's my friend too. He's my friend too. And I have no qualms saying that.
Well, Mr. Narine,
but when you see things are not going right, we have to talk about.
Well, you see, you're only looking at wages, the payment that the workers get. But I'm not bashing the sugar workers. I think they work very hard. I think they deserve everything they get. But we need to recognize that every...
Do you know what is the minimum pay in the sugar industry per day?
For what? For sugarcane workers?
Yes. Do you know what is the minimum pay?
They can make as much as they want if the production is there.
Well, the minimum pay in the sugar industry
you want to make.
Is 55,000.
If I can cut 10 tons of cane per week, I will get about $16,000-$17,000 a week. If I go to 16 tons, I'll make like 25,000 a week.
Ton of cane is below $1,100.
For what?
To cut and load a ton of cane.
No, it's $11 or $15 to cut it for a ton and to cut and load. But that's only part of it. You see, Mr. Narine, that's the problem we are facing. We're only looking at that. But the cutlass is provided by Guysuco. The file is the boots that they wear, the water bag that they carry, the workers only responsible carrying their food and themselves to the bag dam. Transportation is provided. All those are costs. Who pays for them? I think you guys got to look at this thing in a very holistic way. In the early days of Bookers, the sugar workers, my father was a cane cutter. He had to fight his way to the bag dam. There was no transportation.
That's 1948.
Over the years, you've been able to...
transportation.
Yeah, but over the years, some benefit to the workers. But that's a cost to Guysuco.
Before 76. Transportation is nothing new. Medical facilities is nothing new. The provision of tools is nothing new. These are things that had been inherited. Even the white man that used to be so bad used to provide them. These are things that had been inherited, and they are accounted for in the employment cost. All these things that you are talking about, they are accounted for in the employment costs.
Mr. Narine, let me just jump in here because something is not making sense to me. You are a PEP member of parliament. You are a member of the PEP, which is a ruling party. The PEP is dumping billions of dollars to get Guysuco back on its feet. Guysuco is broke, it don't have money. And you calling a strike to demand higher wages at a time when your government is trying to bring Guysuco back and try to make something of it. My question to you is this: don't you think you're undermining your own government?
So by that logic, you are saying that sugar workers should not get an increase as long as the PPP is in government. That's what you're saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying at this juncture. Remember this, Mr. Narine. You have lost over close to 8,000 workers at the closing of 4 sugar estates. Yes. And if the PEP should follow in that direction, they might just let 1 sugar estate run. And Guysuco will be what? A skeleton of a union. So don't you think you're playing with danger in your hands right now? Because Guysuco don't have money. Guysuco is broke.
Understand the issue in its context.
Okay.
When we had the negotiations in 2019, and we were offered 5% increase, we accepted, and there had been an agreement. So Guysuco, by its agreement with us, is owing us payment of 5% for 2019. In 2020, there had not been any increase because the 5%, while it was implemented in 2020, had been for 2019. In 2021, there has not been any increases yet. The board of Guysuco deliberated on the matter and agreed on a position that 2019, 2020, and 2021 should be settled with the union. I'm in full agreement with that. This is supporting a board position. So one has to see the issue in its context. One cannot just say that, look, because the PPP in government, Seepaul, Narine, and GAWU must not fight for an increase. The workers deserve an increase. If you don't give them an increase, you will have an industry without people to work in it. And you know, the minimum pay in Guysuco is $55,000 per month. In the government, it's $70,000 in the public service.
Okay, I'm coming to that later.
Alternatively, Mr. Narine, you can have people there with no industry for them to work as well. Because if GAWU continue this way with the dealing with Guysuco, there will be no industry eventually because there is no.
So you're saying to me that they deducted the workers' money for credit union savings, and I must not go and demand that they pay it over to GAWU.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all.
Everybody else in the country. No, you're saying that everybody else in the country, all state workers who enjoyed increase on the APNU AFC for 5 years, and the sugar workers didn't get any, that I must not ask for an increase because they don't deserve, because the PPP in government. What kind of logic is that?
Based on the current configuration, Mr. Narine, the only way they can get that is if the government is prepared to put an injection into the company to pay that to the workers. Because Guysuco at this point in time, as you know, the revenue is not sufficient to carry their operation.
No, I'm in full support of that. I'm in full support, and I said to them, let's have a joint delegation and talk to the government, because the industry cannot survive without the injection of government capital. In fact, I voted for that in the parliament. But Guysuco is not willing to go along that course. And we are not negotiating with the government. We are negotiating with the management of Guysuco. If you owe us an answer,
the minister made that very clear. Yeah.
If the answer is no, but why are you hiding from us?
I know. We have to take a break now. When we come back, we will continue this discussion. It's very interesting, and I think your answers reveal a hell of a lot. So when we come back, we will continue. We'll take 1 minute break. Stay right.
AllFromOneSupplier.com has all your grocery needs, plus all of your West Indian items. Purchase all your groceries and all your West Indian items from one place and get free delivery to your homes and free shipping. AllFromOneSupplier.com has free deliveries locally in New York and free shipping to all U.S. states. Our shoppers choose the best items, packaged nicely, and delivered to your home. We have all your grocery needs and all your West Indian items, a one-stop shop. So place all your orders on allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. That's online at allfromonesupplier.com or call 718-551-3292. Get all your groceries and all your West Indian items from allfromonesupplier.com with free deliveries and free shipping to all U.S. states. Travelspan offers all airlines, such as American, Caribbean, and JetBlue. So let Travelspan compare all airlines and offer you the best fare. Call Travelspan at 718-845-0437 for the lowest deals between New York, Miami, and Guyana. That's Travelspan at 718-845-0437. Call Travelspan in New York at 718-845-0437, Georgetown at 227-1701, or Berbice at 337-4287. In New York, 718-845-0437, Georgetown 227-1701, or Berbice 337-4287, and West Coast Demerara at 269-0140. Let Travelspan book you the best deals for you and your families.
Welcome back to our program tonight. We want to thank you for staying on, our audience, and of course to our guest, Mr. Seepaul Narine, President of GAWU and Member of Parliament. Dr. Rhodes?
Yes, Mr. Narine. The question I want to ask you is this. APNU closed 4 sugar estates in 2017, am I right?
Yes, and in 2016, Wales had been closed.
And 2017, the other 3 closed, Rosal, Enmore, and Skeldon.
Skeldon.
From what I gathered from the media, was there any severance pay paid to your workers?
They had been paid severance, and they were paid 50%. And then we had to go to the court to have the other 50% addressed, because the 50% payment had been a violation of the Termination of Employment and Severance Pay Act. And when we went to the court, the High Court judge ruled that the workers should receive their payment immediately with 6% interest. And that was honored.
Did they, and the government paid you?
Well,
the government paid
the guys
the workers?
paid the workers.
Guysuco paid the workers. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said something before, that the minimum wage at Guysuco is $55,000
a month.
Per month. But the minimum wage in the public sector is $70,000 a month.
Yes.
So, and I brought this question with Lincoln Lewis as well. Why don't you and all the unions come together to make sure that the government put in practice or put in law that whatever the minimum wage is, it should be across the board for the private sector and for the public sector?
That's an ideal, and in fact, both the TUC and FITO had raised that issue. There is a minimum wage across the country, which is $44,200, and then there is the public sector minimum wage. The private sector people and the business people, they are saying that they can't afford to pay $70,000, and they cannot afford to have the same level as the public servants. At the tripartite committee some time ago, there had been an agreement to have the national minimum wage at $60,000 per month. That had supposed to be implemented, but it was never under APNU AFC. And then, unfortunately, you have the situation of the COVID, and the employers they had an agreement that from April, they could address the 60,000. And I'm reliably informed that they are now making representation to say that we should have a further delay because it is affecting their business, that is the COVID, and they are trying their utmost to keep all the workers on the payroll. So that is having an effect. It is better that people have a job, they get some level of pay, than they don't have a job at all, which the business community is advancing.
Now, Doc,
Okay.
if you don't mind, Doc, one second. But you cannot use a blanket brush and paint everyone with a fixed amount, because having a salary and working in a productive sector like Guysuco or a bottling plant where they get incentive based on production, they can work more than the fixed regular salary. So I think we got to juggle those things too. And for the salespeople, I believe that the government should really get into an arrangement where if the businessman cannot pay a fixed salary, they should pay a commission based on sale for that entity to the workers as well. So somehow the workers are benefiting from increased effort rather than having a fixed salary.
Businesses only
so there's something we can work out that is beneficial to both the business and the workers.
And for us in the trade union movement from FITUG and the TUC, we would be very happy to see that there is one unified minimum wage. But the business people, and you refer to the business community and people managing business and so on, it is the business community that is asking to have the matter before. They agree, they previously agreed to 60,000. And now they're saying that, maybe with some justification, that due to the pandemic and the fact that they are not sending home people, that let's have a hold on the minimum wage. But it needs to be addressed because it is significantly low for the 4,000.
I agree. Yeah, Doc, sorry.
Now, as you know, Guysuco is bankrupt.
Well, they didn't declare that. They didn't declare that.
But the government has to pump money into it.
Well, this is because you have to develop the business, and you are now moving to reopen the estates that have been closed. But Guysuco have not declared bankrupt. In fact, a few days ago in the national newspapers, emanating from Guysuco, they said that sugar was becoming sweet with the sale of 6,500 tons of packaged sugar, and with the possibility of doing better, which we believe. We believe that there is a possibility of doing better, and we are seeing better performance at the factories, and we believe that the possibility of turning around Guysuco is going to come in a short time.
Mr. Narine, it is my understanding, and this is there for everyone to see, that since 2000, the PEP has been pumping money into Guysuco to keep it afloat. And when APNU came into office in 2015, it continued doing that until it said it will not do it anymore. That's where it closed the 4 sugar estates. And you tell me Guysuco is not bankrupt?
Well, they haven't declared bankrupt.
No, you don't have to declare bankrupt to be bankrupt, because the state corporation, they don't have to declare, but I'm saying they don't have the funds. So my question to you is this.
They may not
being a member,
but they have a business plan that in a few years that the industry is going to be viable and is going to be turned around.
So why don't you wait for those years to get an increase then?
Well, you need to ask the people who are managing Guysuco.
No. You said in a few years' time, they have a business plan to turn the industry around. This means that they don't have money now to turn it around. So
But you're missing an important point.
Go ahead.
You're missing an important point. And that point is that the board of directors of Guysuco have approved that there be a settlement for 2019, 2020, and 2021. The board of directors have approved a settlement, and that's all that we're asking for.
And Guysuco has the money to pay. And Guysuco has the money to pay.
if the board of directors of your company makes a decision, wouldn't they have to take into account where they will get the money from and how they will get it?
No, but I'm asking you the question. Does Guysuco have the money to pay?
I can't speak for the board. I can't speak for the board. I'm not a member of the board and I'm not authorized to speak for the board, but I could say clearly that the board of Guysuco has approved a settlement for 2019, 2020, and 2021.
Mr. Narine, you don't have to be on the board to know what's going on with Guysuco. You have the annual report of Guysuco. You have the audited financial statement. And that statement says they are in negative cash flow. The union, your general secretary is a member of the board. So he will know, he will see the financial statement. They have a negative cash flow. So I'm surprised you're telling me tonight that the board approved a settlement when they know that there is no fund available for any financial settlement, except if the government is prepared to pump in the funds to do it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know.
I'm saying to you very clearly that the board of Guysuco has approved a settlement for 2019, 2020, and 2021. Okay. I'm saying to you further that in considering this matter, the board had to take into account all the guidance that it needed, where it will get the money from, and whether it could come out of their cash flow. They had to take into account everything. Well, and I have no doubt.
Okay.
I have no
doubt. Yes. Okay, Mr. Narine, I understand that, but let's be real here. You know Guysuco don't have money. I know Guysuco don't have money.
No, I don't know that. You're assuming that I know that. I don't know that. Because if you could spend $20 million, I'm told, to buy furniture from NISL for one office, then certainly you got money.
So who is giving Guysuco that money? Anyway, look, my question to you is this. Whether you don't know it or not, it has been an established fact that Guysuco don't have money. Guysuco depend on the taxpayers to keep it afloat. That's a given. This is not an if or buts or maybe. Guysuco is not profitable. Guysuco is not profitable. So my question to you is this. You are a member of the PEP. You remember the PPP executive. Why don't you ask them to give you the money?
I'm not a member of the PPP executive.
Okay,
I'm a member of Parliament representing the PPP.
But okay, so why don't you ask the leaders of the PPP to give you the money or to give Guysuco the money so as to pay the workers, knowing fully well, and you know Guysuco is flat broke. Let's not play games here. You know it's flat broke. That's real.
The PPP, through Parliament, has made money available to Guysuco.
But for what? To reopen sugar estates, not to pay wages. You know this.
So if the board of Guysuco recognize that they need support to pay wages, then they have to recognize that and deal with it.
Okay.
We're
not getting into that question. Let me shift.
One second, Doc. Would you consider putting in abeyance those increase in pay, let it continue to pay production bonuses and so on until the corporation gets on its foot so it can have financial strength to make all the payments for the workers? Would you consider that kind of arrangement?
Comrade, production incentive is nothing new. It's not a substitution for wages.
No. I know that. What I'm saying is that
so when one talks about production incentive, you're putting it over as if it is a substitution for wages. One has to recognize that what the union is asking for is what had been approved. They owed us money for 2019. They owed us 5%. They said that. Guysuco, by their own writings, have said that. And what the increases that had been paid in 2020, 5%, implemented in March in order to catch the elections fever. You know, it is 2019 money, and they have verified that. So
you know,
they need
that
to
was a political gimmick, right? You know, that was a political gimmick.
They need to settle with us 2019.
But you know, Mr. Narine, that
no, 2019,
but hear me,
you're missing the point.
That 2019 promise is a political gimmick.
You're missing is that in the negotiations, no less a person than the CEO said to us that we will find an answer for 2019, 2020, and 2021, that I have an offer for you. He said that. And I am aware, because you said it, the union's general secretary is a member of the board, and it is no secret. The board has approved a settlement for those years. So
okay.
why is it that the people at Guysuco, they are not abiding with the board decision to have a settlement?
Okay.
And if they have to go to the government and find money and ask for money, we offer to go with them.
Let's shift gear a little here. In the last 5 years of the PP rule, between 2010.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Between 2010 and 2015, how many strikes Guysuco called against the PP government compared to APNU years 2015 and 2020? Do you know?
Strikes in the industry is nothing new. But I
no, say how many between the last 5 years of the PP reign, 2010 to 2015, and APNU 5 years, 2015 to 2020?
Between 2010 and 2015, the strikes had gone to less than 15 per year, or less than 20 per year.
Okay.
And it continued the same pattern in APNU.
Okay.
Except when the estates had been closed, there had been a heightened of protests against the APNU government for the closure. And when people were not paid their severance pay.
Okay. My next question to you, the strike at Albion now and at Blaymont, are they going to continue or they're off? They're going to call it off?
They protest as warnings.
So they're going back to work tomorrow?
They will be back at work, yes. These were one-day protests. And like I said, as a warning.
Okay. Now, do you think that sugar can become profitable again?
Sugar has the capacity to become profitable, but it has to be managed properly. And it cannot be the old style of doing business, selling sugar in bulk, throwing away your molasses, not making use of your bagasse, having long hours of out of cane. It can't be the same level of inefficiency. And once there could be some improvement, and there is a bright opportunity for bright future for sugar.
Okay, now several studies have shown over the years that the labor unions in Guyana has entrenched political racialization in the country by supporting.
I'm not aware of those studies.
But okay, I'm telling you, by supporting two major parties.
Well, you may want to refer me to those studies because I'm not aware of them. I'm aware that the ILO, the International Labour Organization, have said differently.
This is what the ILO said as well. Go and read the ILO report in 2015. They've said the labor unions Guyana have entrenched racial political racialization in the country. Also, the Caribbean Labor Congress have said the same thing too. So I'm saying,
I used to be a vice president of the CCL, Caribbean Congress of Labor.
Right. And go and read the report in 2014. They said it as well. I look at the report today.
Well, you may want to forward it to me because I'm not aware.
Okay, I can do that. So what I'm saying to you is that
I can't answer you on it.
Okay. Okay, then. So you can answer it. Fine. Now,
No, I'm saying I'm not aware of it. I can't answer you on it.
No, that's okay. That's okay. If you're not aware of it, then, but I'll forward the reports to you. Now, the union in Guyana, both parties have had their own unions entrenched in them in Guyana. But the thing is this, both parties, and this is the dichotomy, the unions or the workers have to always fight for their rights and even go on strike to get a 5% or 2% increase. So what good is it to be entrenched with these political parties? If, for example, GAWU with you, entrenched with the PEP, but your workers still have to go on strike, they still have to miss days of work before they will get an increase. And that goes for the PNC unions too, or whatever unions they have. I'm speaking on both sides here. So what good is to be with these parties when they themselves are forcing you to go to extremes in order to get increases and better working conditions for your workers?
Well, one has to, first of all, GAWU is not entrenched with the PPP. I'm in Parliament on the side of the PPP. And that's different from GAWU being entrenched. But just to let you know that it is the PPP. It is the PPP that has put money into the estates to have them reopened so that people's life could continue socially. It was the APNU AFC that closed those estates, and when the request was made for them to do a socio-economic study, at the time, Vice President Kemraj Ramjatan said, "Are you going to do them?" But he was not prepared to do it. "Are you going to do them?" But that study, that very study has been done by the ILO with our support, with GAWU's support, and soon the report is going to be out. And,
okay,
the world will see what it is. The world will see what it is.
Here is a statement from your boss, your former president, Komal Chan, in 2013. He said GAWU was founded, let me give you the exact statement here. GAWU was founded in 1946 as a Guyana Industrial Workers Union by Chedi Jagan and others. The official function of the union was to, in a nutshell, to represent the interests of the workers. And it should engage in collective bargaining and so forth. But since then, he says, GAWU has been aligned to the PEP. Komal Chan, 2013, April 14th, his statement. And you tell me GAWU is not entrenched? No, I'm telling you, I'm reading from him. I did the research today, and this is a statement in 2013.
Well, that might be so, but he's not here to verify it. But what I'm saying to you,
wow,
in the pursuit of that collective bargaining, we have to do what we are doing and to represent the workers. No employer, even if you are an employer, will come out of your heart and give people what they truly deserve. Sometimes, unions are made and formed to protect the employees and to further their interests and their welfare. And that is why people join a union. It's their way of having an insurance. And it's their way of standing up against an employer in times of injustice. And as kind and good as an employer, you're an employer, they belong to that labor class. And this is a question of the class that you belong to. Whether you belong to the exploitative class or you belong to the working class. And that is where unions are formed to ensure that the working class is protected.
And I'm glad
and by their own.
Okay, and we're coming to program time, Mr. Narine. I'm glad you mentioned that because someone sent me a message says that the union cannot negotiate outside of the laws of Guyana for the benefit of workers. If that is so, if that is so, do we need trade unions in Guyana when the Ministry of Labor can represent the workers to ensure they get what the law requires?
You tell me which Ministry of Labor represents which workers. But the person who sent you that message is unaware that the Trade Union Recognition Act says that once you have a certificate, the employer and the union must negotiate in good faith. And the very law says that they are allowed to negotiate beyond what the law has. This is the Trade Union Recognition Act says you must bargain in good faith, and the Termination of Employment and Severance Pay Act states that you could bargain above what is in the law. What is in the law is just the minimum. And it is permissible to bargain above that.
Isn't the function
in the union, in our collective agreement, there are many, many things that are way above the law. Many things.
But isn't the responsibility of Ministry of Labor to ensure the workers of Guyana are treated well and the benefits are given to them by their employer? Is not a responsibility of the Ministry of Labor?
It is, but it is not their responsibility to bargain on behalf of the employees. And they don't do that. Unions have to do that.
Quickly, I don't know if you know this gentleman, Mr. Mohammed Rafiq. Abu Arbis, you don't know him? Yes.
Or Mr. Mohammed Akil.
Rafiq. Anyway, he sent me this message. He said, please ask Mr. Seepaul and Narine why they are striking when they have perfect weather to make sugar. The government will spend this year $9 billion on retooling and reopening of Rosal Estate. Guysuco is trying to make more money this year so as to have the funds to pay the workers. Would they prefer the estates to be closed and all workers out of a job? The board is spending numerous and long hours trying to make things work, and the union should encourage the workers to do their bit. These are tough times in this pandemic when millions of workers around the world have lost their jobs and thousands in Guyana. Why is Guysuco going on strike?
Well, just tell Mr. Rafiq that the PPP government will not spend $9 billion in capital and not a cent on the increase in pay. Just tell him that. And Guysuco will not agree with that either. You spending $9 billion on capital expenses and you don't want to spend 9 cents on workers, the PPP will not agree with that. I could tell you that. The PPP will not agree with that.
Okay, Mr. Narine, we want to thank you so much for staying with us tonight. We're coming to program time. Dr. Rose, any final word for Mr. Narine?
Mr. Narine, I don't know you before tonight, but you know what? I have tremendous respect for you. You defend yourself well. You stood your ground. I can tell you that. And I will say this. And I'll make the world know this. Be careful, because Sis is my twin brother, so I can't support you. I'll have to support him.
Well, thank you very much. I said to you in the beginning that Sis is my comrade. He is my friend. But I also said that when it comes to the defense of the workers, one has to be fair and one has to ensure that there is justice. And I have told Sis that we are prepared in GAWU to work with him. We have offered to go and make visits with him. We did make some visits with him, and we are going to make more, because we also want to have the confidence of the people who work in Guysuco to support his team, he and his team. So, like you, Sis is my comrade also, but I have to stand my ground and defend the rights and the benefits of the workers.
I just want to say this, because let me appeal to all our viewers to help us continue this program. This program costs a lot of money to operate each night, and we're asking you to make a donation. Go to Globespan 24x7.com and then click on Talk Show. And when you click on Talk Show, you're going to see click on Visa, MasterCard, or PayPal to make a donation. You have options. You can make a one-time donation or a monthly donation. Any amount we will accept. We need your financial help. We're asking all the viewers, please support Globespan. Once again, go to Globespan 24x7.com. and just click on talk show. It's very, very simple. And then you'll see all the options come up there, Visa, MasterCard, or PayPal. Click on it and to make a donation. Please, please support us. You can make a monthly donation, you have that option, or you can make a one-time donation, you have that option as well, please. And one more thing, I want our listeners to know that we are trying to get the opposition leader, Mr. Joseph Harmon, to come on this show since January, and he has turned us down. And the same goes for Mr. Vikram Bharat. He's the Minister of Energy. He has also turned us down. We don't know the reason, but we're going to try to get him to come on the show one way or the other. But just for our listeners to know, because they've been asking questions, why don't we get the opposition leader to come on the show? Why don't we get the Minister of Energy to come on the show? We have been bombarded with these questions, and we try to get them, and they're not coming. So we'll have to try harder. Thank you,
Dr. Mr. Narine. I also want to join with Dr. Rose in saying how encouraged I am by your response. You've proven yourself to be a great union leader, and we look forward to your continued leadership in GAWU. I just want to also ask you to work with the CEO of Guysuco. He has a phenomenal plan, as you know, and the sales mix, they're changing. They have an excellent marketing team there now, and they're working to get things done. And once it is done and they can achieve that sales mix, I think the CEO is more than willing to pay the workers as much as they deserve and even more, because he's that kind of person. We want to thank you so much again for coming on tonight. In addition to Dr. Rose, we also want to encourage our viewers, if you book your ticket to come to Guyana or going to the US, book it through Globespan. They'll get a commission, and that will also help to defray some of the costs of this program. So thank you so much. Mr. Narine, thank you so much again.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your program as well. And we want to assure you that GAWU is prepared to work with the CEO to ensure that the industry moves forward. We may have differences, but when it comes to commonality of moving the industry forward, we are at one with that. Thank you once more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Rose, and thank you to our audience, to Devin and to Noir Singh, for making this broadcast available. To our viewers out there, thank you, and God bless you. God bless this great country of Guyana. Thank you.
Amen.